just when you think, Terry, that you've seen it all with Glasgow Celtic Football Club, just when you think every fairy tale has been written, every storyline has been written, we get that today. James Forrest getting not just one, but two records, two birds with one stone. He scores in his 16th consecutive season to take the record that Paul McStay held at 15, and also getting the 112th goal of Celtic season, which means they've scored more now than the Lisbon Lions, which was the record. As I say, you think you've seen it all with Celtic, and then that happens. One end to that trophy day. But we're here to talk about it. It's going to be a good one. So, Terry, I'd imagine you're doing pretty good today, mate.
Yeah, I'm good, Phil. I was saying to you before we come on there, it never ever gets old. I'll never ever get tired of this feeling. Actually, totally embarrassing, but I welled up a little bit earlier. Just the celebrations, they just get me a wee bit emotional because I know it's only a game of football. I know it's only a football club, but for so many of us, and it's not just tens and hundreds, it's hundreds of thousands and millions of people. Your football club is a massive, massive part of your life, and that's certainly the case for me. And when mine's as successful as it is now, I mean, this one feels as good as absolutely any of the other ones that I've experienced at any stage in my 48 years on this earth. And long may it continue. And the Forrest one, I mean, everyone knew it was going to happen. Bhoycie put up the picture of his bet there that he put on. I couldn't get on because my bookie didn't have Forrest because he didn't start the match. They wouldn't give you odds on him scoring. And everyone talked. He just knew it was going to happen. I've already said before, I actually don't think it's that big a deal. I thought it was a wee bit over-egged, the whole thing, because attacking player playing 20-odd, 25-odd appearances a season scores a goal every single season. I didn't think it was that big a deal, to be honest. I think the most decorated thing, I think that's much more of an accolade to be proud of. The goal scoring one didn't really register with me as being a big deal, but obviously it was with him. It obviously was with the crowd who clearly wanted to do it. It obviously was with Alistair Johnson, who should have been shooting but decided to lay Forrest in. And you know what? Delighted for him. If it means something to him and it means something to other people, absolutely brilliant. But for me, the main moment was him bringing out the league trophy as the most decorated player. And see, even listening to him, he's just so unassuming. He's never been one for the limelight league. You'll probably count on one hand the amount of times you've heard James Forrest do a post-match interview of any of that. He's not on social media. He doesn't do any of that. He's the kind of player, Phil, he's obviously homegrown. He had injury problems at the start, and he's kind of that's just totally improved year on year with age. And it kind of was one. He was kind of a Mikey Johnson type figure where you thought this guy's never ever going to be fit enough to make any kind of telling contribution. But then there was a point came where they must have got to the bottom of it, or maybe it was just his body matured at a certain time where those little niggles stopped coming as much, and then he became a real telling figure. But at the end of the day, he's going to be a one club man, and he's dedicated his whole life to Celtic. I think he's been underestimated, underappreciated. Not necessarily by the fans, not necessarily by anyone, or not in a bad way. I just don't think anyone's really realised just how good a player we've had. And at the minute, he's the most decorated Celt. I think he might get overtaken in the next couple of years by another player who's been excellent and massively successful. But James Forrest, that team that we named today, that was Brendan Rodgers' cup final team. I've no doubt about that. That was his team for next week, and he was giving them a final run out to get ready for next week. The amount of energy that James Forrest injected into that game, I think Brendan Rodgers will be rethinking over the next couple of days as to what his strongest lineup. And I don't think it's just Forrest. I think Yang will have done himself no harm either. Look at that front three. That front three was very, very ineffectual today until James Forrest came on. That game was it was a firework that was supposed to take off that didn't go off. you went in to try and fix it, try and get it go off again, and it didn't go off until Yang and Forrest came on. And Kuhn's been hit or miss. He showed us at times this season why he's been at big clubs like Bayern Munich and Ajax and whoever else. But he's also showed us why he didn't make it at those clubs. Ada, I don't even want to go there. I don't want to talk about any negatives on a day like today. And I won't even leave Dyson out of it, because I think the last 2 or 3 weeks, I think he's had a drop off, and that sitter that he missed today was the Dyson of last year or the year before or that. But I think there's a few people today have done themselves no harm in trying to force their way into the starting lineup for next week. And if I was picking it right now, the majority of it would be what we've seen today. But I don't know how you don't start James Forrest next week after that performance. Not even the goal. Take away the goal, because he didn't even connect well with that. That wasn't a great hit. It was kind of close to the keeper at his near post. The keeper should probably have saved that one. But the amount of chances Forrest created, you think about the one for Maida, he also created one for Yang. The balls that he was just dinking across there, until Forrest came on, we'd one shot on target. But in the last 5 or 10 minutes, we probably had about 6. He was one of them hitting it, but the rest of them were all set up by him. And I think all sentiment and all that kind of crap aside, I think he's played his way into the starting lineup next week.
Yeah, it's definitely one. Obviously, the game today was quite bereft of talking points, but that's probably the biggest one. Looking at after Wednesday night, where the second string getting chances and destroying Aberdeen, plus the performance today, is anybody giving Brendan food for thought? And Forrest is definitely one I'd agree, because on Wednesday night he was outstanding as well. Absolutely outstanding, and then today, unbelievable.
I think Yang does too. I don't see how Maida starts. I think it's you go Maida through the middle and you go Yang and Forrest in the wings. Honestly, see that performance Wednesday night, Phil. I know you messaged me, and I'd love to come on, but I was away with work, and it was just too awkward. I was entertaining and stuff like entertaining. I wasn't. I was entertaining myself.
The Celtic B team were entertaining you watching that. That's what they were doing Wednesday night.
I was actually sitting watching the game with one of the lads that I work with, and he's a Rangers fan. But we watched that Aberdeen game, and I actually really, really enjoyed that performance from a second string team, and it was full of energy. They were inventful. Yang was buzzing, Forrest was buzzing. I actually think Nawrocki played really, really well again and again. It's one of those ones. What's the problem with this guy? This guy comes in, he gets an odd appearance. I think he looks like a good defender. Is it just that yard of pace? Is that make or break? Is that really the difference between him and Scales and Trusty? And
the worrying bit in that sense, Terry, if that's the case, is Brendan Rodgers was the manager when we signed him. He was one of the ones when 2023 that summer. We looked at all the signings and we were like, were they legacy signings from the Ange era? But people linked the Bhoycie one to Leicester had played Legia Warsaw in the Conference League like the season before or like 2 seasons before. And the Bhoycie had played in that game. So people thought, did Brendan first clock him there? So there was a bit of a link. The other ones like Yang and Kuhn and stuff like that joining, there was a bit of no, that seems like an Ange, like a legacy signing. But the Bhoycie was one of the few that summer where you went, oh, there's a connection there. And he's just him and Lagerbielke, the saga with him as well. And it's like, you're the manager, you claim that you sanction all the signings, and then you decide, nah, this guy ain't for me. It's a weird one because I don't think...
He looks okay, Phil. He looks okay.
He's not been terrible. He's not terrible. Yeah.
And he's had no run whatsoever. Like, he's getting scraps, and he's looking okay getting scraps. Like, it was... The Rangers games where he's come in absolutely from the cold, hasn't been seen for months. Like if that guy got 10, 15, 20 appearances in a row, what could he actually do? There has to be something a wee bit more to it as to why he hasn't had any kind of opportunity at all. Because I love Scales, but he's got limitations. And I haven't seen an awful lot from Nawrocki to say he's a million miles off being as good as Scales. I haven't seen anything from Trusty's got a little bit more athleticism, but that only takes you so far if the rest of your attributes aren't up to scratch. So Anyway, we'll see how that one plays out. But I think Rodgers had his starting lineup for next week picked. I think today maybe puts a few doubts in his mind, but that's one for next week.
Definitely, I say you couple it with Wednesday. It felt like Wednesday there was players who were playing for the manager's attention for the cup final. Then today, I agree. I think you're looking at that lineup today. That's probably what he would go with. But yeah, now it gives him a bit of food for thought combined with what we saw through the week. Where it's like, is it the lineup you go with on next Saturday? There's a couple of players there that have definitely raised a few questions. Obviously the forced change. There's obviously one that's guaranteed. Is the Hatate injury that happened on Wednesday. Today, Bernardo got the start, which I've been clamouring for a while. I'm like, Bernardo needs to get a chance. But like most of the team today, they were quite static for long periods. There was one point in particular with Bernardo where Kuhn cut inside. Maybe he was guilty of not shooting quick enough, but he tried to pass it off to Bernardo. Maybe Bernardo wasn't expecting it on the edge of the area. It kind of got stuck under his feet. Couldn't get the shot away. Just like really clumsy and cumbersome. And then McCown came on and he wasn't really getting into the game. Engels didn't have a particularly great game today. So it's like the midfield, it's a bit, after the Hatate one going, you're like, well, it's going to be McGregor, Bernardo, and Engels starting the cup final now. But again, it's like, I don't know. That's one where there could be a bit of a choice there for Brendan. He's going to have to think wisely on that one for next Saturday, I think.
I thought the wee young lad McCardle was unfortunate to drop out. I don't know if there's been an injury or if it's just one of those ones, just giving him a wee bit of exposure, then reining him in again to, show him that he has to keep earning it and stuff like that. But that, it's only wee snippets that we've seen of him, but he looks like a good little player as well. You know what I mean?
Yeah, he was very exciting the other night when he came on. So hopefully this is one that doesn't just slip away into the ether. Somebody who does come through the youth setup and can start to be the next big talent that we can produce, like a James Forrest, like a Callum McGregor, because it's been too long now since we've produced one of those types of players to come out of Lennoxtown, out the B team essentially, and establish themselves. So McCardle, the early signs look not too bad for him. But yeah, see, today, in terms of the overall performance, the energy was just, it was night and day compared to Wednesday night, where it was, they blew them away, and that was pretty much a whole second string team. But yeah, today it was just a really stodgy affair, very much an end of season one. But in fairness, Terry, in recent years, we've got a right to expect a big performance because we've blown teams away on Trophy Day. We've kind of went out and made a statement on Trophy Day with some of the performances we've had. But yeah, it just felt like today we just never really were at it. The first half, genuinely, I cannot tell you anything of note that happened in that whole first half other than their goalkeeper was down injured for a few minutes. Other than that, not a thing. In the second half, it took St Mirren to score. And then it was like, okay, now there's a wee bit of urgency about us. And pretty much it was one-way traffic up until the end. But yeah, it's one of those ones that I don't think when push comes to shove next week with the cup on the line, I don't think they'll phone in a performance like that. It was very much a end-of-season affair. Maybe the players didn't want to go too gung-ho in case there's an injury. We saw how easy Hatate get injured and Jotters get injured and what's happened to them. But yeah, that performance today, if they were to phone it in like that next week, I would be worried. But I don't think they will. I think it will be very much with something on the line. I think this team will be switched on next week.
Well, you've seen this all across Europe the last few weeks. Once the leagues are won, the teams that have won them, as much as they still put out strong teams, as much as the supporters still turn up and they want to see the same intensity and they want to see their team win and retain. And the day you get the trophy, you want to see your team put on a performance. And most of the time Celtic have done that for us, but on odd time it doesn't happen. But I mean, look at Liverpool. Once they've got the job done down south, the performances have dropped off. The same thing will happen in Spain. Barcelona have got the job done. Their performances will drop off. It's a long, long, hard season. And the team that has won the league, they've every right. Yes, we don't want them to go out there and just chuck it. And they didn't do that today. They tried and they played. But, there wasn't the same jeopardy. And I think I don't have any problem around. I think next week the fuse will be lit again. It'll be heads on. They'll enjoy today. I actually don't. I'd be surprised if they're allowed a lot of free rein tonight to go and do whatever they want. I think that'll maybe already have happened after we secured the league against Dundee United. I think at that point it'll probably have been, right, lads, you can enjoy yourselves for a couple of days, and we'll come back in a few days and we'll get things on again. I think that'll already have happened. I don't think tonight will be a night where there's free rein to go and enjoy yourself and indulge. I would say tonight will be more, right, okay, we'll do the stuff that happens normally after the presentation and that. Then you go home with your families. You can have a couple, but from tomorrow it's head on for next week, because it's a wee bit like me when I was pouring there. I was only supposed to pour a double, but I poured a treble because I was already thinking about next week. And I think the Celtic players and the manager celebration of the title, that'll have been done against Dundee United. I think there'll be no indulgence or overindulgence tonight. I think the heads will be straight focused on next week. And look what we've done against Aberdeen. We've hit Aberdeen this season. We've hit them for 6. We've hit them for 2 5s. I think we'll just be going out there next week absolutely brimming to get, front foot. There's very, very little positivity for Aberdeen to take from any of the encounters they've had against us. The commentator today, Ian Crocker, he made a mistake. He said the match next week was at Celtic Park. I also heard somebody about 2 or 3 weeks ago, when they were meant to say Hampden, they said Celtic Park. And I think what's in these guys' head is Hampden Park's almost a home stadium for us because of the amount of times that we've been there.
Yeah.
And honest to God, I'm so looking forward to next week. And here's another wee element to this. This might actually be my last post-match pitch, because I don't know where I'm watching the match next week. If I watch it at home, I'll be on with Bhoycie straight after. But if I watch it away, I probably won't. And I'm out of contract this summer, and my representatives have been speaking to the Bhoycie Bus, the main consortium that sit behind and plough the millions into the podcast. But see, to be honest, Phil, at the minute we're miles and miles apart. We're miles apart at the minute, and I want to be here and I want to stay with the bus. But at the end of the day, Bhoycie needs to show the same. He needs to put the pound signs up. So we'll see. We'll see what happens.
Is this consortium led by some sort of NFL franchise by any chance?
I'm joining the rabble from next week.
Paul John Dyke spotted chapping on your door last week. Apparently Fabrizio Romano tweeted about it.
Well, as you know, every single Celtic podcast is looking for a drunken idiot to come on after every match and just spout piss. You know what I mean?
Oh, no, you're definitely not. No, trust me, the future's bright for you, Terry. I'll elaborate after the show. You and I will have a chat. I'll sit down with the table with you, mate, and I'll chat with you. I'll get that sorted. But also a comment that just came in that caught my eye here. We've got a St Mirren fan in the chat. He comes in peace, everybody. It's nothing for a wind-up. Says St Mirren fan here, but often watch a show on a Friday night. Oh, that's good to know. Thank you, Graham. James Forrest is a legend, and even want to shout that out. I can't believe he wasn't used in the Euros last summer for Scotland. That's right. I mean, but then again, the way Scotland performed last year in the Euros was absolutely abysmal. James Forrest obviously, got himself back at the Celtic team tail end of last season, got himself over to the Steve Clarke's plans, didn't play a single minute, and you look how bad Scotland were in that tournament. But again, it's Stevie Clarke to a team. We did well to qualify, and then we just didn't do anything. We actually went to the tournament against the James Forrest. Could he have made a difference? But it's good to see.
Just when Graham's on, Phil, then obviously he watches the Friday night because that's the flagship show. That's the main show run by yourself. But I think today you have to also give St Mirren a lot of credit, and not just because Graham's on, but I was thinking this already. They're turning up there. Celtic are going to be celebrating. It's a party atmosphere. The sun splitting the trees. It's all about Celtic, and most times in this scenario we end up winning by about 4 or 5. St Mirren went there today under a very, very good manager on a shoestring budget, who has done it time after time with teams in Scotland. And they had a chance of qualifying for Europe today. And all they had to do was better Dundee United's result against Aberdeen. And for much of today, St Mirren were in the driving seat there because they were ahead against us and Aberdeen were ahead against Dundee United. And I'd say if you said to St Mirren before the game, you get a draw, they'd have took that and then took their chances in the other game. But for most of today, both games were going in their favour, and then it was just robbed from them in the last. It was robbed from them in the last 15 minutes or so, where Dundee United came back, got ahead against Aberdeen, and Celtic. Obviously, it didn't make a difference that Celtic equalised then at the end, but a great achievement for St Mirren to be in the top six. And I mean,
maybe that's the third season in a row they've done it, or the second season in a row.
Superb. And if you think about the games, like I think about the games where I've talked about Aberdeen there, where we've done a 5 and 2 5s and a 6 this season. I don't remember us giving St Mirren too many doings. And the keeper today, Hemmings, was annoying me because he was wasting time from about 30 seconds into the match. But I've also looked at Hemmings and I thought he always plays well against us. And St Mirren are always a sticky opponent for us. And I think in terms of today, I thought, fair play to them. They came out with a game plan. It obviously wasn't one where they were going to open up and allow themselves just to be lambs to the slaughter, but they were trying to get into Europe, which would be a massive achievement for them. They just fell short in the last 15 minutes of the season, but a lot of kudos to them. And if they can manage to hold on to Stephen Robinson, I know he was touted for jobs like Hearts and that. I think McInnes is obviously going to get that one. But if they can hold on to Robinson's a good manager. And as you say, 2 or 3 seasons in a row in the top 6, that's a really good achievement.
Yeah, no, you're right as well. They have been a very stodgy opponent for us for the last few years. They've taken some points off us. Remember Ange losing there, a 2-0 loss, and them holding us to like a 0-0 draw and stuff like that at their own ground. They can be quite a sticky wee team compared to Aberdeen, who for a long time were perceived to maybe be the second best team in the country this season for a while, and then we're putting 5 and 6 past them. But no, St Mirren have done well, and I don't think Stephen Robinson would walk away from that job. If he's getting them into the top 6, 3 seasons on the bounce, he's obviously got them in the right track. I think to walk away, especially the other SPFL side right now, because McInnes is going to go to Hearts. That looks like that's happening. Kilmarnock's going to be available. That would be a huge step down right now with the way Kilmarnock are and St Mirren are. So no, he's got a good thing going there, and fair play to him.
So it's a nice moment today, Phil, as well. Obviously not a nice moment because it was a minute's applause for Jack McGinn, but there was a bit of an allegiance there between Celtic and St Mirren because Jack McGinn was obviously involved with the board at Celtic, but then you've got all the McGinn lads that came through at St Mirren as well.
So all play for St Mirren, yeah. I've said that to my dad before again. I'm pretty sure all the John, Stephen,
definitely John
have all played.
It does.
So there's affinity with both teams there, with the McGinn family.
Obviously a sad moment, but obviously nice that there was. Both clubs appreciated that.
Well, the obviously we've been at the game. There's a few things that I didn't pick up on because you would have seen it on the TV. So during the post-match celebrations, was Jota there? Because I couldn't see him. He was there. I saw Hatate on the crutches, and I said, there's Jota. And he went, no, Hatate's on the crutches.
I don't know. I just seen crutches. Crutches.
Hatate was definitely on crutches, but Jota is obviously a very distinctive hair, and I was looking and I was like, I can't see Jota, so I don't know if it's a case of.
I might overrule myself. I just seen crutches and thought Jota, but I didn't because of the weather. Honest to God, it's so hot here at the minute, and we never ever get it. So I was out in the sun before the match, and then I come into my wee shed to watch the match. But as soon as the match finished, I went back out into the sun, and then I was at my phone. And I couldn't see it, so I was really just listening to the post-match celebrations. But I did see a crutch, and I just immediately thought Jota. But you could be right; it could be Hatate, but he could be back. I don't know. He could be back home, or who knows? Or it might have been.
Ali says here, Jones. I believe he did fly back to Portugal for an operation on his knee, so maybe he's got to stay there for the time being. Because I was looking out for him to see if he was on crutches or on like a boot.
It's a thought ahead. It's a thought ahead to next season, Phil, because I know today's just we haven't even finished this season because we still got next week, but we finished the league season. But my brain already starts to think, right, what does next season look like? We've just celebrated this one, but I'm already thinking, what does the jigsaw look like next year? And I think I think Jota, we just take that piece of the jigsaw out and it gets put away to one side because he ain't going to be back before January, and then you don't know how long it's going to take to get him back up to speed. He wasn't even back up to speed having come back this January. So I think that piece of the jigsaw just goes. And then, you know, what's going to happen? What's going to happen this summer? And I know we're kind of bypassing today's game, but there was just so much to today's game that could be bypassed.
Yeah.
And as much as I don't want to think about negative things on the day we win the title, Hitate's injury, depending on how bad it is, that might mean he stays if he doesn't recover from his injury. If it's not a major one, I think Hitate goes. I really don't want to say this, but I am going to say it. My gut feel is Maida goes, and I'll give you my explanation of that. Mm-hmm. When Brendan Rodgers talked about trying to get a new deal for Maida, he referenced talking to Dermot Desmond about it. Mm-hmm. Why would Dermot Desmond need to be involved in a contract renewal for a player? That's not his job. That's way beyond his grade. There's loads of people beneath him that sort that out. So my thought process there is Brendan Rodgers would love to keep him. The club model means he has to go because he is at his absolute peak. He's had the season of all seasons. He's cleaned up on every award. Mm-hmm. The chances are he won't replicate that next season. This season is possibly an outlier because, as Mark said, most of Dyson's time at Celtic, he's looked like a Wayne at a wedding, kicking a balloon on Red Bull, and he has. And next season, he could probably go back to that. And then we look at the 24-25 season as the anomaly. Mm-hmm. So I think the club as in the hierarchy sitting just above Brendan, I think they'll be going, the model says we sell him now. He's probably thinking, I've just had the absolute season of all seasons. Yeah. This is my time to do something. Mm-hmm. I think Celtic will offer him something, but it won't be appealing enough to keep him on his last big contract. But I think Brendan, being so clever, as he always is, he's put it out there publicly. He wants Desmond involved. So my thoughts there are, Brendan thinks the guys above me are going to attempt to keep him on face value, but they ain't going to go anywhere near enough to actually keep him. So I want Dermot to go in there, tickle his moustache, and fucking keep this guy, even though it doesn't fit the model. So all that coming together, I expect Maida to go. I totally hope I'm wrong. Mm-hmm. Hitate, depending on the injury, I expect him to go. Jota's out. I think you have to write him off. And then you've got a jigsaw to start fucking putting pieces together. And I think Kuhn, like, if his performance against Bayern Munich and Leipzig, if teams are judging him on that, there's every chance we get a deal for an offer for him. And my gut feel on him is if we got an offer, a Jota-like offer for him, we take that because he's been hit or miss, and we don't know if he's going to kick on again next year. But then all of a sudden, you could possibly be 3-4 players down. So, again, I don't know how we've got onto this one because we're celebrating today's title, but that's just where my brain goes. Yeah. As soon as this one's done, I'm starting to think about the next one and trying to piece together all the parts. And
I think you're right too, Terry, because
like you're thinking of Celtic, we've now gone 4 in a row. We're on a double, we might win a treble, and you're thinking you just consolidate, but it doesn't really work like that anymore because we follow the model, we follow the money, players have got their own aspirations, blah, 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 blah. Ida won't do. He can't be a first choice centre forward for Celtic. He just doesn't have enough class for me. He might have good games here and there. He isn't good enough to be the first choice, so we need to replace him. We need to replace Jota. if we also need to replace Kuhn, Maid, and Hatate, my goodness, that becomes an interesting summer. And the one guy I want in beyond all is Lennon Miller. I think we've maybe missed the boat because there's too many people getting into his ear. But if he sees that he's going to be playing first choice, which seems to be all the people close to him and all the people that know him are saying that's the most important thing about his next deal is that he's going to play. If he sees the gaps appearing, then I think that's where we could get him. But his camp will probably be looking at the model of Lewis Ferguson, McTominay, Gilmour, those guys going out to Italy and ripping it up. And by the way, look at that scenario where you've got Lewis Ferguson, he's not Scotland regular, he hasn't been. No. McTominay has been. Gilmour has been in and out. But then we've got the guy who would probably be deemed as better than all of them, as in Callum McGregor. Like we knew that Scotland midfield, Callum McGregor was the one that was always there. McTominay was in and out. Christie was there in and out. McGinn's pretty much a staple. Gilmour's in and out. Lewis Ferguson's been a bit part. We've actually got the best of all them players. Obviously he's coming to the end of his tenure as well. Yeah. So long story short, I want Lennon Miller in at all costs. I'm concerned that we'll not have Hatate or Maeda. If we get the right money, I would take it. I'd just let it go and get another one in. There's that young Norwegian lad. I don't know why. I've obviously never seen him in the flesh. The one from, is it Sarpsborg? I don't know. Could be wrong. Or Ysetter. I just watched his stuff and I just thought he could be the one for us. But I'm getting so far ahead of myself. I'm already thinking next season the striker will be a big one as well. Ida isn't Celtic first choice striker class. He can stay as a backup, or if we can get some of our money back, happy days. So I just don't see what he brings to the party, Phil. I don't see what his skill set is. He obviously doesn't have the pressing of Kyogo. He doesn't have the pace of Maeda. He doesn't have the work rate of fucking anybody who does any work anywhere in the fucking world. Do you know what I mean?
Yes, the Mirren definitely doesn't help him much.
I don't get it. He just comes across to me as so lethargic.
Yeah. I was going to say, I think you're right to look ahead to next season, in fairness, because I think we've got a big
today's not the day, but my brain just goes there. Goes there.
It's fine. I mean, I know there's a very, very good chance we'll be winning a treble this season, but again, you can't stand still and rest on your laurels. There is a big summer ahead. Going through the team there, like you've done, it does highlight there is a lot of things that do need addressed. There could be scenarios that can come up where players go that are out of our control. A bid comes in, a player goes, there's another space to be filled. And as much as a lot of fans are still laughing about it and not taking it seriously, we have to keep our eye on what's happening at Ibrox, because that will determine what our board will do. They're very reactive.
I can't believe Big Warnock hasn't been announced. He was there. It was done, and then they went for Ancelotti's son, and then they're going all around these. It's Big Warnock. It's sitting looking at you.
Oh, that. It was Ian Cocker. No, it was Chris Sutton that said it on commentary, wasn't it? He said, "Oh, maybe there's something in that one." But I do genuinely believe that we have to keep our eye on that. At the end of the day, they're going to have some kind of financial stability at least, and that might be enough for them to go and spend something. So we need to stay ahead of the game, because again, you cannot just rest on your laurels. You can't just go, "We won a treble. It's fine. Everything's fine." You've just went through the team there and highlighted a lot of things. I cannot disagree with many of the stuff. So it's like there is some work to be done there. We have to try to strengthen
that situation with Rangers. Celtic notoriously have never strengthened from a position of strength. So what they do is they get ahead, as we are now, as we've done previously in the previous 10 in a row, and at other times. We get ahead, and we're so far ahead, and it's like a horse race. And the horse in front, the jockey either keeps driving the horse out and pushes it out and drives it on to get the best possible outcome for that horse, which means it wins the race by as much as it possibly can. Or what the Celtic horse does is get into the position where they know they're going to win the race. They start looking over their shoulder. They start doing the jockey thing, looking through their legs. They get a wee bit cocky, and they allow the next horse to start getting closer and closer and closer. But what they then do is, once they get close, where there's a slight chance that they could overtake them, they then try to kick on again. But sometimes the horse won't respond to that, and you can't kick on, because what you're then doing is, rather than kicking on every single season and striving for the best that you can also possibly do, you allow the next horse to come as close as possible, and then you put yourself in a pressurized position where you must kick on. You have to get everything right, because if you don't, that horse that's gaining momentum year after year after year, it can scoot past you, because you've put all your eggs in too small a basket, and those eggs have started to crack. And Celtic have never been good at that, because all they do is think about the domestic situation and the main opposition that we need to stay ahead of. And the club needs to get away from this. I think the supporters now are thinking about European football, and we're thinking about that in a much different way, because I'll be honest, I was always, as long as we finish it ahead of Rangers, I don't care if we get put out in the first round of Europe or we get to the fucking final of the Europa League. I don't really care as long as we're ahead of Rangers. But that's not the right mindset. That's just keeping yourself in a small bubble. You've got to go and be the best version of yourself. And for Celtic, that means not forgetting about domestic football, but broadening horizons and aiming much bigger than that. And Europe is much bigger than Scottish football. And we really need to build and see this season. This season was such progression. And Brendan Rodgers will be sitting there, see when he's having his end of season meeting with the guys above him, and he's looking at that graph, and they've got Ange's season, Brendan's season, Brendan's next season, and that graph's just going straight up. That's him sitting there, and he's beaming, but he's then got to push that on again.
He does. After the way the new Champions League format played out this season, we don't want to be, looking in for, or looking in it from the outside essentially next season. And again, this is more reason why we have to start quick and early in the transfer window, because this qualifier, I know it's at the end of August, but trust me, it will be here soon enough. You want to get players in. We talk about players having a good pre-season with the manager. You don't want them coming in after we've played the qualifiers or days before it. You want them in now to go on whatever tour we're going to do. I don't know if it's the USA or Japan or Australia, whatever we're doing this year.
Planned, Phil. It doesn't sound like there's anything too far away planned. And the thing about this one is we cannot go with this approach where we wait for this match, we then see what competition we're in, and we then scratch about for the fucking dregs that are left over from everybody else picking through what's there. We need to press on, and we need to use this window in such a way that when that game comes round, we've practically guaranteed we're going to get through it, because we've tooled up, and that's not something we've done before. And I'm long in the tooth enough to think we might do the same thing again, but I'm hoping we don't. I'm really hoping we don't.
I know, it's like, the once bitten, twice shy. We keep on saying this, like, no, this season will be different. And then we could end up in the same scenario again. But no, fingers crossed. It's going to be different this season, guys. I'm telling you, this time we'll be ready for it. But I believe that the way it stands right now, we're currently in the unseeded bracket for the qualifiers. But that can still change.
I think that'll
change. Yeah. There's a couple of dynamics that need to move around, but I believe that it can happen.
The teams involved, Phil, I don't think it really changes a great deal whether you move from the seeded or the unseeded. I don't think there's a huge.
They're all at a similar level. The only difference is if you're the unseeded side, you play the home leg first and the away leg second.
But either way, you're either talking about a Bodo Glimt or Dynamo Zagreb or a Midtjylland or a Copenhagen. It's going to be them same teams, them same names that have caused us a lot of trouble in the past. But you've got to hope beyond hope that we've got enough in the tank. But I really think it's important that we don't go. We'll budget for Europa League and pray for the Champions League. I think we budget for the Champions League, and we pray we don't go to the Europa League. I think you've got to change that mindset. We really do. We've dipped our toes in this year, and do you know what? If you step back and look at it, we've gone to that next price range, and we look at the three big signings from last year. Ida, not great. Engels, very debatable. A lot of people. The thing about Engels is, we sell him tomorrow, we get our money back. Ida, we sell him tomorrow, we make a loss. Trusty, not for me. I don't see that Trusty is significantly better than Nawrocki or Scales. I get he's got more pace than both of those, but the rest of the stuff I don't know about. And the thing, and I'll give him a bit of credit as well. The manager talks about having the left-sided player and the importance of having the left-footed centre back. I actually think Trusty's best performances for us came when he played on the right-hand side, which he did in Atalanta, and I think he did in another game as well. So I think that centre-back position could really, really be strengthened. I'd like to see Nawrocki get a proper run at it, but whatever's going on there, I think the plan will be to try and get rid of him. But I would love to see us go all out an Engels level signing at centre-back, as in somebody 10, 11, 12, 13, whatever it is, somebody who's going to come in, somebody that's going to say, right, CCV, you've been great. You're the main man. I'm now the main man. You need to fight for your place. I'd love to see us go in there in that position. You get somebody who's at least as good as Carter Vickers or an upgrade. And then you have those two in the middle. And that gives you such a strong base because you'll have Kasper Schmeichel, Carter Vickers, and potentially someone that's either as good or better than him. And that's a really strong base to build from for next season.
Yeah, I think after what we did last summer, I think it's the norm now that we need to be looking at buying at least one player in that sort of Engels price bracket. I don't think there's any reason why Celtic can't. I think you look to get a marquee signing in. Then there was a statement signing, and a price tag of that ilk is something that is a statement signing in Scottish football. So I do think
even the terminology you're using there, statement sign, that shouldn't be the case anymore. That should just be the norm now for us.
Norm, aye.
Yeah, shouldn't it really? Because it's a statement signing because of the amount. But as me and Bhoycie have said so many times, Chris Sutton, John Hartson, fucking
Neil Lennon was about the same price as he too.
I know. I was trying not to say Isle Berkovic just because.
Oh well, yeah.
And do you know what I mean? But I'm just thinking of 6 million sounds. We got to that 6 point where people started to shit themselves and get nervous. But we were doing 6 millions fucking 25 years ago.
Yep.
Do you know what I mean? And the Engels money shouldn't be. It shouldn't be stretching the boat out. That should just be the aisle that we're shopping in. And it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if one or two of them don't make it. Either we got our pants pulled down. I definitely think that we did. He's now showing the level that I thought he was at before we signed him. And then when we signed him and he came in and he had that burst, he had that real buzz, and he scored a lot of important goals. And I think he could do that going forward. I think he could score a lot of important goals for us. I just don't think he's at the absolute top class. And I'm probably a bit of a snob now because I followed Celtic through the Larsson years, and you're not going to get that player again. You're not going to get that level every single time. But I want my centre forward to be better than Adamida. And I think we can get better than Adamida. I think he can still be a part to play. I think he can still score a lot of important goals. I just don't want him to be the number one Celtic centre forward.
Yeah, well, this name, Matthias Visgarden, keeps coming up. I think it's came up too many times now in too many windows for it not to be on our short list. I don't know if a one-off link you just got, that was just a random media link, but his name does keep coming up. I've seen it circling again as we head towards this window. I've seen a few tweets from different journalists based in Scandinavia region and saying things that will cost about £11 million for Visgarden. And again, it's like, well, that's the aisle, as you say. We should be shopping in now. If Celtic have been like this guy for 3-4 windows now,
they must be in for him. There's we don't seem to have any competition. We haven't been able to get him, but I don't hear any other names being linked to him.
The only time I've seen any other name was after Frankfurt sold Marmoush to Manchester City. There was talk that Frankfurt were going to sign him. They didn't, obviously. He's still at Brøndby. But yeah, I seen a couple of weeks ago, once again, his name was coming up, and journalists that are based in the Scandinavia area were saying if Celtic are looking to sign him, it's going to cost about 11 million. As you say, that is the aisle that we should be shopping in now. So that shouldn't scare people off. It shouldn't scare the club off. It's like, if that's what you want, and we've been linked to him for 4 windows or something now, obviously we must have an eye on this guy. Then if that's what it's going to take, then got to do it, I think.
The fee doesn't really matter at the end of the day, because if we'd signed Ida for 1 million, I honestly think I would still turn around and have the same opinion of him, that he's not good enough to be Celtic's first choice centre forward. But then some you win, some you lose. We got Maida for 1.5. You got Engels for 11, whatever. If you amalgamate them together, we've still done well. You got Reho Hatate for 1.5. You got somebody else for a wee bit more. The fee doesn't really matter. The player that you sign is still the same player, no matter what it's took for you to get him. And again, thinking ahead to the Lennon Miller, if we'd gone in big balls in January, they said Motherwell didn't want to sell him in January. That's fine. But Motherwell didn't want to sell him. But if we went big enough, Motherwell would have sold him, because that's how things work. The fee that you pay is whatever you have to pay to get the guy that you want. It doesn't mean he's worth that. It doesn't mean he's going to live up to that. It doesn't mean he's going to make you a profit in the future. That's just what you've got to pay for the player that you've identified as a player that you think is going to improve your team. And whatever Motherwell want for him, we go in there and we offer that. And if the lad decides, do you know what, I want to go to Celtic, I've seen, just from any research I've done, I think if Brendan Rodgers' conversation, if it ever gets to that stage with Lennon Miller, is Lennon Miller goes, I want to play first team football, I think Brendan Rodgers would be replying, I will guarantee that you will play lots of matches. That might be off the bench, that might be off the start. But I think if we lose one of the midfielders that we've got, which is most likely Hatate, I think that opens up the opportunity for Miller. But again, people advising him, and I hear it a lot on podcasts where ex-pros and people are advising him just to follow the road to Italy and go with that, because that's the gravy train that's happening now. But you've also got to remember it. This is just a young laddie at 18. He might not want to go and live in Italy. He might want to stay at home and live with his folks, or he might want to live nearby and be able to go home and see his parents at the time. You just don't know. But I think this is one of those talents, Phil, that is like the John McGinn. I think this is one that we've got to get done. If it doesn't get done, I don't think Celtic will be at fault. I think Celtic will have tried everything. I really do. But I see him as the one that comes in, he'll get more game time than Bernardo. He'll get more game time than McKeon. And when Kalmack finishes, and again, he was pressed about that today post-match, and he's just gone, and I loved his response. Cal McGregor, how long are you going to last for? I don't know. But I just love playing for this football club, and I'm just going to keep playing for this football club. until such times as somebody tells me I'm not ready to play for this football club anymore. And then I think the conversation, I think Celtic will be all out for Lennon Miller, and I think the conversation will be, Hitati's gone, McGregor's got a couple of years left. We see you as our future player for as long as you want to be here. Future captain, once McGregor's gone and Tierney does a couple of years, then it's you. It's you for as long as you want. I'd love to see that laddie come in. I think he's absolutely a different class. I think he's the next big one coming out of Scotland. We got Scott Brown. See, at the time, I wanted us to get Thompson because Thompson was a Celtic fan, Brown was a Rangers fan, and I thought Thompson was a classier player than Brown, but I was wrong because Thompson went to Rangers. He was just running the mill. Brown came to Celtic. Now, he totally transformed because when I watched Brown at Hibs, I thought he was like a Gallus number 10 where he was a free spirit, but when he came to Celtic, that very much became a Cobra or a combination of a 6 and an 8. And I kind of was a little bit disappointed at the start because I wanted to see the Brown in the 10 that I'd seen at Hibs where he was just fucking trying stuff and being really inventive, but then he just bossed Scottish football, and that's the thing that comes out when people talk about Scott Brown. He just completely bossed Scottish football. And
the armband on him is what
we got a different player than the one I thought we were getting.
Yeah,
but we got a fucking better player than the one I thought we were getting.
Yeah, when he got the armband, it seemed to switch something on in Scott Brown.
Long story short, Celtic, Miller in.
I agree. Lennon Miller, definitely. I've seen enough of the boy. Where we see Scottish football every single week. I've seen enough of him now to say, yeah, this boy's got something, and I think we'd be foolish to let that one go, or at least not try. At least if they try, and if the boy does say no, because he gets an offer from, say, I know a team like Borussia Dortmund's names came up. If he ends up deciding to go and play in the Bundesliga,
I'm pretty sure we've been trying. I'm pretty sure we've been trying for 2.5 years. I can't say that we haven't.
Yeah, you'd like to think so, but again, you look at what's happened in Italy with them taking guys like Ferguson and the Scottish midfielders there. There's one boy from Hibs.
Why would he rush into anything when he's seen the success that those kids have had?
And who was the boy that Hibs? Was it Doig? Josh Doig went to play in Hibs and play in Italy. And
I don't think that story's over. I could see Doig coming in.
Who's the Hearts fullback that ended up at Brentford now? Hickey. Yeah, that was another one that went to Italy.
Do you remember? It was him and Karamoko. Karamoko was 16 and Hickey was 17. They were playing against each other in the Scottish Cup, either semi or final. And Karamoko was the name on everybody's lips. But you're watching it and you're going, actually, that young lad there's not bad. And then but he's been really curtailed by the injury. We've obviously seen where Karamoko's career's gone. Like he had Barcelona and everybody looking at him, and that's obviously gone south. But I remember watching the Celtic Hearts game in the Scottish Cup, and everybody's talking about Karamoka Dembele, this kid. He played for the reserves when he was 13 and all this. And then I just remember going, that young lad's at Markham. He's a good player.
Yeah, and, I remember that as well. Then that was
we had Hickey. Hickey was at Celtic Park, and we let him go. And then I do think we tried to get him back from Hearts, but he's probably been scarred by that. He's probably gone, I've already been at Celtic. They've let me go. That hurts me. Now they're trying to get me back, but I've also got an offer of going to Serie A. You probably take the path that he's gone. I think the only thing with Hickey is I think he's in that James Forrest early years situation where he's injured more than he's not, and Celtic couldn't afford now to bring somebody in like him that's maybe only available 30% of the season, whereas Brentford and teams like that they probably can. Even though we've brought Kieran Tierney in, but I think
I'm looking forward to seeing Tierney back in the hoops.
How mad's that? So say he never played for Celtic, and say he didn't support Celtic, and he didn't love Celtic and all of that. Can you imagine if we just went down to England and brought in a player from a top 4 team that had been in the semi-final of the Champions League
semi-final, yep.
And brought in one of their players. Like, how mad would that be?
Yeah. So you just can't imagine it these days, but that's, it's a fact. He has a Champions League semi-finalist this season, so he has been in the squad. He's played more minutes this half of the season than I thought he would. I genuinely thought after the carry on in January, where we clearly wanted to try and get him up on a loan to the end of the season, and then he just signs for us full time. I thought Arsenal were just like, they were at it. I'm like, they're not going to use him. Arteta's just being awkward for the sake of it. But he's actually played a fair bit this half season, and even played as a winger in the forward line at times. And it's like, oh, wow, he's a fair player.
See the young lad, Phil. See the young lad that's come through. I don't watch an awful lot of EPL, and I don't know if you do or not. But see that young lad, I've seen a wee bit of him.
Miles Skelly. Lewis.
I think he could be the best left back in the world in the next 12 months. I think he is absolutely superb. Yeah. I think he's different level. And if he's the reason we're getting Kieran Tierney back, then happy days. But can you imagine, like, if we went to Arsenal, Paris Saint-Germain, Barcelona, or Inter Milan and got their second choice fullback, if we just went and done that signing, can you imagine how buzzing we would be? Now we're getting that because we're getting a lad that just loves Celtic to the end of the world and back. He's as much a fan as you or me or anybody anywhere across Celtic, Glasgow, Scotland, Ireland, the whole world. That's why we're getting him. But if that was a signing if we had to go and pay for Kieran Tierney, I'd be a 40 million signing. Minimum.
Easy.
Can you imagine the fanfare if we went and did that?
Old bus parade for the boat for spending that, my God.
Like when Brendan came along the first time, there was 13,000 in the stadium. There'd be about 300,000 in the stadium if we just went and signed a player like that. You know,
the overspill down at the Tron Gate. It would. They'd come out. They welcome him. Yeah, that'd be.
You've touched on a point there around the Tron Gate. So I seen some footage today. So obviously we've known Celtic were going to win the league from probably about the second week in August, and today was the day that the trophy was going to be brought out by James, and then lo and behold, there was an orange walk arranged for the same day. And I think originally the whole fear was about the Celtic fans coming out of the stadium round about 3-4 o'clock and then making their way into George Square when there was an orange walk at 10 o'clock that would probably still be lingering over. But what the footage I seen was that the Celtic fans were making their way from the city centre through the Tron Gate and up that area to go to the match. And things looked a wee bit unsavoury from what I've seen. So I don't want to make any comment on it. I just want to say I hope everybody on both sides were safe and sound and there was no trouble. But there's serious question marks over how that was allowed to happen. And I'm sure in the aftermath, it'll probably come out that, Celtic fans couldn't behave themselves and do this or that. But it's a situation that didn't have to happen. It could have been avoided. I hope everybody was safe and sound. But in this day and age, that kind of confrontation shouldn't really be fucking happening.
I said to Liam last night, I do think that the club should maybe look to work with the council to get like maybe Glasgow Green used on days like today, like a fan zone set up there. I don't know if it's a case that they can't do it because we can't really announce anything until we're officially champions.
Can I give you my thoughts, Phil? I think it should all be done within the confines of the stadium.
Yeah, I mean, I don't. Again, we've got ground there that could be used for some kind of fan zone for the celebrations.
You've got a pitch.
Well, yeah, we do actually.
You've a fucking big pitch there, and you've got the grounds, and you've got the Celtic Way. Set up a few pop-up bars, like at the end of the day. See, when you got around the Celtic Way and you've got the pitch and you've got all of that and all that wee surrounding area, why not just keep it in-house? Celtic organise it, Celtic control it. Yes, you've got a wee bit of cost for security and stewards and stuff, but why didn't you just have pop-up bars and just have a fucking supporters area that's within your control? Because all those people that are at that game today, they'll stay behind for the celebrations. Then they'll start to make their way back into town again. But all that money that they spend going back into town again, that just goes into the town. Whereas you could have that coming into the club if you had something organised. Like it doesn't take a lot of money to set up a few temporary bars. And you can charge £6, £7, £8 for a pint, whatever you want. Like at the end of the day, if Celtic have won the league and everybody's celebrating, you're happy enough to pay a wee bit more. And then you avoid that whole scenario of going back into the city centre and then it becomes a free-for-all. And then there's people from other clubs that don't win things very often that want to come out and have their say on the title day and all that kind of thing. I just think Celtic are missing a trick. Do you know what I mean? I think there's just so much that could be done within the confines of Celtic Park and the surrounding area. Just keep it in house and look after the supporters. Because as much as I'm sitting here in my house in Northern Ireland, you're back home. There'll be Celtic supporters out and about around the town tonight, and they'll end up in the hospital and. You know, I'm not trying to say that's just confined to Celtic supporters. If it was Rangers celebrating a title and all there's a lot of guys that'll end up in the hospitals around Glasgow, and it could all be avoided if people just sort of took a wee bit of responsibility, had a wee bit of foresight and said, right, let's keep this in-house. Let's keep it in the surrounding area around Celtic Park. There's other things happening in the town. Let them happen. Let them fizzle out. Like, geez, I'm not a visionary here, but you know, you could sort things out that you're looking after people and you're making a few quid out of it. Is that too difficult?
I say the boards do love the profit and the money, so if there's money to be made, surely that's an opportunity for the boards to jump on. But I said that to Liam last night. He was talking about you could easily do something like that. But yeah, it seems to rumble on every year now. Every time we win the title, it becomes a thing, and it's like, you know, I know what happened organically after the treble. I want to say. And then we had COVID basically shut everything down, and then it came back in 2022. And I think it was just the release of being out and about again and being able to do stuff, which brought the one in 2022 about. And it's just continued ever since then. But every year when it now rolls around, it seems like there's all these negative headlines attached to it. There's always going to be bam pots that will get a bit too drunk and things will happen.
Like me. But again, like me.
But isn't... But so you some of the logic you've came out with in the last 10 minutes. Some people say in the chat you're being too logical now, Terry. So it's obviously having a good
effect. The big fight starting and everybody's piling in. I'd be busting for a pee. I'd be going away off looking for a toilet.
But no, you definitely make a good point. Again, it's something that will probably rumble on. If we get in the same situation this time next year, I'm sure
we will.
Be back
we
again.
will, Phil, because we're gonna do 10 in a row this time.
The Glasgow Rangers 49ers are going to stop us, no?
I said it after the Slippy season where the club, I won't even say the club, the Rangers, because my biggest pet peeve on the podcast world is listening to Celtic supporters and Rangers supporters talking about them and the club across the road and the other side and all this. Just call them their name. The Rangers. They're the Rangers. And they hate to call us the Celtic. Have a wee bit of fucking respect. I will call them the Rangers because that's what they are. I said after the Rangers stopped us in the last 10, I said, we will now go and we will do the 10 from now. Mm-hmm. What are we on now? Is that 4?
4.
No, see, Henrik, see that? Oh, the mob from the other side of the city. And I think they're worse at it than ours, but I would say that because I'm biased. Just turn around and say what they fucking are. The Rangers, the Celtic, whatever. Fucking show a bit of respect. Like, I show a bit of respect. They are the Rangers. I'll call them the Rangers. They won that season when nobody was allowed to go to a game. Nobody was allowed to watch a match. Nobody was allowed to shout at shite players telling them we're shite. All that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And they won the league. There was freak results all over Europe, all over world football. In normal circumstances, we were on the 10 And that would have meant now that we would be in about fucking 15. But anyway, at that time, I said, we will now go on and do the 10. And I genuinely still think that's the case. I don't care about the takeover from the 69ers and all that kind of fucking bollocks. I really don't care. Those guys are coming in here to make money.
Yeah.
They're coming in to make money. They will fleece that Rangers support base for whatever they've got left, which I don't think is very much.
Mm-hmm.
They're not coming in here to waste millions of pounds on something that might not work. They're coming in, they'll fleece that supporter base, they'll clean them out, and they'll leave them in the same place they were in 2012, on the fucking verge of no return.
Mm-hmm.
We will do 10 in a row this time. Clip it up, everybody. Clip it up, as many of you as it want. We will do 10 in a row from now. I promise you, we definitely will. And coming towards 50, I'll be happy enough to go at that. I'll be happy enough to have seen Celtic return from a point where I thought we were gone, consolidate ourselves as the best club in Scotland, reinforce ourselves as the absolute fucking pinnacle of Scottish football, and we will then get that 10 in a row. That is my prediction from now. But how did that conversation start?
I don't know, but that's the thing. This is post-match pitch.
That's where we're going. That's where we're going. We are going to there. All this optimism, all this false optimism about how the 69ers are going to come in and they're going to end up, Rangers are going to end up just all of a sudden this summer, Rangers are going to end up 20 points clear next season. That ain't happening. That isn't happening. That kind of stuff can't happen. There isn't going to be the kind of investment that means players that are going to go to England or Spain or Italy are suddenly going to come to Glasgow Rangers or their Rangers or whatever they want, whatever the current entity is called. That isn't going to happen. Like I've sat and watched podcasts, and I do watch some, and there are some really, really good Rangers podcasts that I think are really good. But even those guys, there's a deluded section that think all of a sudden this summer they are going to go out and start signing players above their station, and they forget about the fact that the reason they got into trouble before is because they signed players who were above their station with money that they should have been given to the Queen instead of keeping in house, and that's how they got into that situation. I've no doubt if this takeover happens that they will be in a stronger position at some point in the future, but I don't see that point coming in the next 2 or 3 years. I think that will be a consolidation period where they take over the debt. They don't just take over the team of bottlers and shit players. They take over the debt that has been built up since 2012, and their first priority will be to clear that debt from those times. Like when Fergus came in, that didn't just mean the next season Celtic were amazing.
That's right. It took a while,
years just for us to compete, and that's going to be the same situation there. I've no doubt they'll get stronger, but I don't think it's going to be this magic wand that Rangers supporters think the minute this season ends and the San Francisco 69ers are involved, that they're just going to start licking us. Do you know what I mean? It's not going to happen. It's just not going to happen. It's going to be 3-4 years down the line. And at that point, you're at 8-9 again. And I am telling you right now, we'll get this 10. And I'll tell you even better than that, I'm not convinced that Brendan Rodgers will not be here for that.
Right, okay, because we're still in the dark about what he's going to do beyond next season. He's very he just keeps on saying about I'm here for 3 years, and he's left it at that.
What's his options though, Phil? He isn't going back to England. No. England's done with him. So it's either Saudi, China, big money for low profile, or it's stay here and make yourself a legend. Do you remember the banner? Do you remember the banner? You traded immortality for mediocrity.
I do.
This time it could be you traded mediocrity for immortality. That banner could get switched round.
It could. By the way, it's right there in front of him. I noticed today in his post-match speech, when he was asked about how does it feel to be the manager of the champions again, being the most successful team in Scotland, and he said, "This is how it feels to be Celtic," which of course is the line in the song that used to get sang about the 10 in a row. So it's like, is that him dropping a wee hint? Because I say this is how it feels to be Celtic as the first line in that tune. So it's like, I wonder if there's a subtle hint there of where he sees it. And even at that, it might be a case of he may end up becoming part of the board director of football after his time as manager. Maybe something like that happens. I don't know, because again, I don't see where he manages after. You're right about the English thing. I think in England is
ain't happening.
Coming up here and winning a league, sadly for the English teams, doesn't matter. Winning, you won the Scottish Premiership.
It's time's done down there, Phil. It's time's done. There's no job. Like if you run all through those EPL teams, either the ones at the top, he ain't getting the ones at the top.
No.
The ones in the middle, the likes of the Brentfords, the Fulhams, the Brighton, they've got their own long-term process in place where they're generating managers through data in the same way that 10 years ago you got players through data. He ain't appearing in any of those radars. And the ones at the bottom, well, he's never been one for getting into the bottom and trying to fucking get teams out of relegation, because Brendan's a sunny day manager with the sun shining and the teeth glowing and the tan glowing. So I don't see any EPL job. If he goes to Saudi or China, it's just absolutely for cash. He's already got cash. He doesn't need any of that. He's already told us that he didn't like the way that his reputation within the Celtic support changed after he left. I just see it as if we want him, we'll get him for the rest of his days. And I honestly wouldn't be surprised if he's happy enough with that challenge, because I think him and his wife are happy. They're happy in Glasgow. He did give it away. It's the interviews you see. You have to pay attention to his interviews. Like that one where I was talking about Maeda. I'm talking to Dermot Desmond about Maeda's contract, and I'm going, well, hold on a minute. Why are you
He's very calculated, Terry. A lot of things he does are very deliberate.
Why are you not talking to Michael Nicholson about it? Why are you not talking to the other guys? Why are you talking to Desmond about it? Well, you're talking to him because the guys above you, they want to stick to the model, which means you sell Maeda. He's had a wonder season. He's at 28. He's got no sell-on value after his next contract. They want him to go. That's why he's talking to Desmond, because he's going, right, Dermot, I want to keep him. Make him an offer he can't refuse. That's why Desmond's involved. But, Rodgers has made his money. I genuinely do believe he is a Celtic supporter. I genuinely do believe that move to Leicester still wrangles with him, because he made a career decision above a supporter decision, and he's now back to build that legacy. And I think the ego thing, see if we can keep him and get close to that 10. I think the ego will then be there. He knows he won't get Premiership. He probably doesn't want to go and live in Saudi or China. And if he can get that 10, would mean immortality, which changes that banner to you came back and got immortality. I don't think it's impossible. I don't think it's fanciful.
No, I agree. I think, again, it's all going to be down to giving him what he wants and needs in terms of the players on the park. Needs to, every season, if he goes into that boardroom, can produce the trophies and success, they've got to, whatever he wants, he needs to get it.
But see, Rangers, Phil, then, if they go through all these candidates that they're just about to announce, that then turn their back on them, I think they'll end up with Gerrard again, because he's got no options and they've got no options. And I actually think that would reignite Brendan for another 3 years, just to put him in his box.
Yeah, I remember the headlines the last time it was those two against each other, because apparently they fell out at Liverpool at the tail end of Gerrard's career, because he wanted to stay and finish his career at Liverpool, and he didn't get renewed or get a new contract offered, and the manager, of course, was Brendan Rodgers. So the headlines were already written when he came up here, and I did think there was, I think Brendan would have took note of the headlines. And yeah, it would probably, if it came around to that again, I agree. I think there would be an invigoration there. But yeah, that's something we'll just need to watch coming down the road in the next few weeks of what they do. But for the time being, say what we've done. We've wrapped up the title this season. We are now 4-in-a-row champions. Terry, it's been over your shoulder constantly. I think it's only one thing for you to do at the end of this show. You need to lift that trophy behind you, mate. I think it needs to be done.
2 wee things. I'm going to lift the trophy first. Hold on. That's a wee medal. That's one of them. A wee cinch medal. Sure, stick that round my neck.
A wee cinch medal, yep. Yeah.
I've made enough appearances. I think I've made my 10 appearances. I'm entitled to a medal.
You are actually, yes. You definitely are.
Fuck. What you bastard.
There you go, folks.
Oh,
it's trophy day at Terry's house as well, folks. There you go. Look at that. Beautiful. Beautiful.
Yeah, I love you. Here, listen. Get that one down.
Careful, does he fall?
No, listen. I'm conscious I haven't done a wee song all season, so I'm going to do a wee, song here. I'm going to do a wee song. Phil, just check me out after about 5 seconds. This is what it means to be Celtic. Champions again, as you know. Brendan Rodgers is here for 10 in a row. 10 in a row. Get it up, yeah.
And on that note, I guess we need to go, folks. Terry said it. He's here for the 10 in a row. We'll raise that league flag high. We will drink to James Forrest tonight. Well done to James Forrest for getting the record today. Well done to Celtic for another great season. And it's onwards now to the Cup final next week. So yeah, folks, we're out of here. Enjoy the rest of your night. Enjoy the rest of your weekend celebrating another trophy success. And yeah, we'll catch you on the next one, folks. Thanks for watching. And we'll see you later. Cheers.